The work is made 100% out of salt, different types of salt that all come from Western New South Wales and the Murray-Darling area.
We use the salt over 1 tons, probably 1.5 tons in total. The sculpture is pretty hard, and it's harder than concrete. Yeah, I can tell it's harder because I cut off with grinder, but it's taking longer time to cut salt than concrete.
It's kind of like marble, but it's also like marble in that it's really heavy. So that's the hard thing as well. It's just physically moving the tabletop.
Yeah, salt is a mineral. I think people can tell that if they touch the one of the piece. Quite solid, but don't touch during the exhibition. We got married a long time, over 19 years, and it's quite natural to start working together. I asked working together many times, but it was rejected because she didn't want to become a poor artist.
I originally was working in Asian studies, cultural studies and history, and Ken was always hassling me to do a project together, but I resisted for a while, and then I decided, well, if you can't stop them, you have to join them. So we both became artists. We both use our background, I think, in the collaborative process. Ken's got a business background, and I've got more research background, and definitely I use the research background in through the process both of researching the work and then explaining it to people as well. Even in Ken's work, he originally was concerned with environmental issues, and it just carried on from there. We started working on salinity issues in Australia after a residency in Mildura, which was exploring salinity through the medium of salt. And that's also where the origin of where this work, The Last Supper, came from. And also after the Fukushima incident in Japan, we started making work that was a response to that, made out of uranium glass.
After the accident, we had a chance to go back to Japan for a few months, and we always have to spend a couple of hours more than that at the supermarket to buy stuff, because we have to check each items, vegetable, meat, milk, and flip out the package, and we can see the label where the product from.
With this work, The Last Supper, we decided to extend literally and also metaphorically the idea of the still life, the food bowl work in particular, because we wanted to look at the impact not only of salinity but also environmental toxins in general, and the impact that they have on our food safety and food security and the world. And we thought that we can still use the medium of salt to do that, and salt becomes a metaphor for the death of the landscape and the death of ecosystems and the impact that that can have on our food chain. The work is made out of existing food that we have sourced either originally from Mildura or from the local area around Hazelhurst. Making the Last Supper work has really been an amazing experience because it's the ideal setup for an artist. We have this beautiful, huge studio to work in, and we're living on site on the grounds in a beautiful cottage. So it's really been enabled us to expand the still life, the food bowl, into a new work that is much bigger in scale and much more ambitious. It's the kind of scale that we wouldn't have been able to make in our own studio. So that's been really important for us. We spent so long, and I would say we had about 100 test molds to make this work originally, trying to cast salt, because salt is extremely hard to cast. It doesn't bind with anything, and it's also extremely soluble with water.
Yeah, had done lots of tests and failed. And first piece we got, strong enough, and we cried when we saw it.
You cried?
Oh, I cried. Sorry.
When we opened up the mold and it wasn't broken, he cried.
Yeah, so because so many failed. Yeah.
It took a really long time.
Probably we should get the copyright, because we got asked
we always get
100 people from over the world. It's actually a kind of artist magic, so we try not to talk about it. We like a magic is we can't show a trick. It's the viewers always have to want to see just the magic. It's pretty disappointed if we show trick.
It's really nice working with salt, even though it is toxic to our environment. It's also an essential ingredient in our bodies. It's the one thing, as well as water, that we actually need in order to survive is salt. So I think that's really interesting. It's really the paradoxical kind of characteristic of salt is that it's essential to life, and it also causes death. And for us as well, I think we have a real love-hate relationship with it.
We got an idea Last Supper because it's quite chaotic world for food. Lots of issues. In Japanese TV program, and on the streets, the TV crew asking, "What do you want to eat when you die?" It's a kind of Last Supper. And then people answer, I wanna eat noodle, Japanese noodle, sushi, kind of thing. And lots of food, discussions. But the food in the world is so contaminated, and it's not safe. And that's why we actually kind of mimicking the title of the Last Supper.
We obviously were drawn to the Last Supper as a title just through its meaning, but also the Last Supper as a work of art comes from the Renaissance period, which we were originally interested in through the still life. So there's a lot of connections. And from a religious perspective, though the work isn't necessarily a religious comment, the Last Supper is obviously connected to biblical stories, and salt is very much connected to not only the Bible but a lot of religions, including in Japan. It's seen as a very sacred material, and we were interested in that idea of salt as well as being key to the a sacred substance in the sense that it is both both the preserver of life and also the taker of life, and that metaphor is used a lot.
Our work is kind of 世紀末アートってなんていうのなんていうの世紀末 End of the world
Armageddon.
If we can categorize our work, I want to say it's kind of Armageddon artwork.
It's a work for the 21st century.
Yeah. We got our anxiety for this world. Yeah.